welcome to the FSF Popcast live show. There it is. Hello, kids and cadets. Welcome to the FSF Popcast live show. This is a special pre-recorded show because I'm bad at math and calendars. So, because we have a pre-existing event today at 5 p.m., we're not coming live at 5. We are, in fact, recording this at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And so it is technically the same day review as we always do, but just a little pre-recorded.
It's a little wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey, if you will.
Timey-wimey. We went a little Doctor Who on it. It's all right. But, you know. So today we are here to discuss The Acolyte, episode 7, which aired last night on Disney Plus. And this was the flashback episode that we've been saying that we needed. That was going to help explain everything. So with that in mind, I need you guys to know that there are lots of spoilers ahead if you haven't watched episode 7. All the things that we were curious about, all the things that we've been questioning, a lot of them have been answered. And I am curious as to how long episode 8 is going to be and how they're going to fit all the rest of the answers into one episode, because for as much as was answered in episode 7, there's a lot that needs to be answered within episode 8.
Yeah, there's a lot still to be explained, but there's a lot that has been explained to an extent.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, here we go. Let's jump into it. We start off back on the planet of Brendock, or as I like to call it, Breadnought. Because breadnoughts are good, especially if they have garlic and a little bit of cheese on the inside. You know, nobody really complains about those.
See, now I'm going to be hungry again.
I do.
When I watch this again at 5, I'm going to be hungry then as well. So
exactly, right? Well, see, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to help you out. You're welcome. Yeah. But we start off, we see the crew, the original 4 Jedi that we saw back in episode 3 as they came into the Witch's Coven. And we see them talking. Yes, I said it wrong on purpose. I know it's Coven. I just like watching your head sigh and hang in disappointment. Oh my God, he did it again. But inside this coven, we see the 4 Jedi come in. There's Master Saul, Master Kalnaka, Master Indara, as you see here on the screen, and then of course Master Torben, who was still a Padawan at that time. Now they say that they are here investigating Brendock because there was a catastrophe 100 years earlier than what we see them.
Yes,
and the planet was lifeless, but now it's brimming with life.
Right. They're talking about the great hyperspace disaster that happened in the High Republic novels, where there was a collision in hyperspace and debris from that was scattered and destroyed a lot of planets, a lot of ships.
Right.
Like a whole section of the galaxy was cut off from travel until things could get fixed. So it's a nice callback to the books and the continuity because, you know, those events are canon.
Exactly. And so they talk about that, but they talk about separately that the thing that must be causing that I don't think that they were sent here for this, but they started talking about a divergence in the Force, and that's what they're looking for. Secondarily, first of all, they're examining the life and how life has grown and all these different things. But one of the things that did crack me up, and I try not to be that guy when I watch these Star Wars episodes. You see a lot of guys get their underwear up in knots about the fact that you can see Philip's head screws on the end of that lightsaber, or you can see, that's I don't really care about that stuff. It doesn't really get me all too twisted, but this made me laugh. I was like, he looks like he's using a metal detector that I could go pick up at Walmart this afternoon.
Well, yeah.
But I was like, it is what it is. I'm not sweating it too badly. I'm just bringing it up because it made me laugh.
Right.
Every time I saw him on screen, I was like, oh, there's Grandpa Kalnaka looking for his quarters again.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, that's hilarious. I hadn't thought of Grandpa Kalnaka. Well, Star Wars has always used items as props, Oh,
sure.
A lightsaber was just a flashbulb handle.
Mm-hmm.
The communicators in Phantom Menace were women's razors.
Camtanos are ice cream machines, ice cream
exactly.
buckets.
It's what
It
they
is
do.
what it is.
If anything, I see this as a very direct nod to that tradition, and Grandpa Kelnaka pulls it off great.
I just couldn't help laugh every time he was like, and it just made me laugh. Anyway, that was a horrible impression of a Wookiee, by the way.
Yeah, you're not playing a Wookiee next campaign. Sorry. Or maybe you should. I don't know.
That's a little better.
There we go. You got it.
So it's a little better. But yeah, so we see them going across. They're taking samples. They're searching for things. They're doing all kinds of stuff. We see in one scene, Master Saul grabs a clump of grass or moss and puts it in his little box to save it for later for further examination.
Right, because there's not supposed to be life here.
Right. There's not supposed to be any type of life, but yet this planet is absolutely brimming with life.
Yeah.
And later that night, we see them sitting around the campfire, and I thought it was kind of a nice nod to the sequel trilogy where the Wookiee is sitting in front of the fire roasting something on a spit. It's just slowly roasting it, like Chewie was roasting the porgs. Porgs are food, not friends.
Or like how the Ewoks were trying to roast Han Solo.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, there's nice little nod forward on that. I just thought it was kind of funny. Yeah. But we see here that Torben is very uneasy. He wants to go back to Coruscant. He wants to get off what he presumes to be a lifeless planet.
Well, he's been here for 7 months, and he's a city kid. He doesn't want to go camping for 7 months.
7 months with the only 4, as far as he can tell, the only 4 pieces of actual physical life outside of plants are the 4 of them that are there.
Right. And so, why are they camping when they have a perfectly good ship?
I didn't understand that either.
I mean, a campfire and cooking I can kind of get, but
yeah, and maybe wanting to get outside, but you've been outside all day. Go inside,
exactly. They've spent tens of thousands of years perfecting indoors with air conditioning and subspace connections to other worlds. Why are they camping?
That's a very good question, and one that I had not thought about last night while I was watching this. But now all of a sudden I'm like, he's kind of right. They are just kind of they're kind of camping.
They're pretending to be homeless.
Yeah, exactly. But Torben's all kinds of bent up. He wants to get out of there. He wants to go home. And this is where the Virgins in the Force issue is brought up and it's discussed with him. And Saul makes it sound like this is the greatest thing that a Jedi could do. It's even more important than looking for the plant life and all these other things. And so there's a little bit of discussion about that. And this is where Indara reminds him that this is why she is the master with a Padawan, and he is not, because she wanted him to come to that answer, that conclusion on his own. And Saul was just like, hey, here's the answer. There you go.
Right.
So, but yeah, as it continues on, they're doing their searches inside. And this is a little bit after Saul has discovered that there are girls on the planet. He follows them back with Mother Coral. They go into the coven and hide. And he goes back and talks about how he's seen these 2 girls and that he's been there. He thinks they're in danger because there's going to be something happening.
Some ritual.
So, yeah, some ritual. Yeah. He doesn't know what it is. He doesn't know what's going on. But so this is after this. This is what we've seen in episode 3. This is where they go back. They infiltrate the coven. They interrupt the ascension ritual. At this point, only May has been marked. Osha has not. And we see that we've already known that they both get tested and all those different things. So what we see here is that Indara has gone to the High Council to see if they can bring her back, because she is at this point 8 years old and she says too old to begin the training.
Right. So
and to not interrupt this coven or their lives any more than they already have. And that's the ruling from the High Council that she's too old to start.
Right. Which is consistent with everything else.
Right. Because at this point, because when we get to the time of the Phantom Menace, it almost makes it sound like if you go back and watch that again, it almost makes it sound like Yoda's like, yeah, we made this exception before. It didn't work out well. When they're talking about
Yeah.
Anakin.
Right.
So I tend to think that this is the exception that we're finding out about. And but this is where Torben kind of goes off the rails, right? I mean, he gets a little alert on the little iPad Android tablet looking thing there.
Okay.
And it's all about the M count. The M count of these two girls is off the charts, he says.
Yes. Which we've heard that about somebody else before, but not
Right.
yet in the timeline. So obviously this is not something they've run into on a daily basis.
Right. And even more interesting than that, he said that the M count is identical between the two girls. And at first, Indara's like, well, yeah, that makes sense because they're twins. And he's like, no, even twins have a separate M count.
Right.
And their M count and all the symbionts were exactly the same. So,
which is a mathematical improbability.
Correct. So again, is this, now they're starting to realize that this is because of the Vergence and the Force, that this must have the Force must have had something to do with bringing these girls to life, because there's been no real explanation as to how that's happened up until this point. And we're getting little flashback scenes here and there about what's happening with the Coven and what's happening between, because you're seeing it from Saul's vantage point. He's kind of looking down on everything. And I thought it was kind of interesting that they did it that way. And one of the other things I see, that because he takes off, Torben takes off, and he heads off to go. He's going to go. I'm not sure where he's going or why. I still don't understand why he took off. What was the point of him going to the?
He was just pulling a Leroy Jenkins. He was running out ahead of the plan and messing everything up.
Right, because he gives no reason as he takes off to go head towards the Coven and get these girls or what he was going to do. There's no reason given until Master Saul catches up with him on a separate speeder, and they're outside the door. And by this time, they've realized that May has sabotaged the doors, and where it cuts to her being on the inside, and she says nobody can get in or out.
Right,
and then she does this. And this helps us understand really well, actually, what's going on with the fire, why the fire was so dangerous. Because everybody, if you look back on the internet, everybody's like, well, a fire can't explode a brick and, can't kill people like that.
No, but if you spread it into the electrical system.
Which it did.
Hey, look at that. A perfectly logical explanation.
As to why the fire spread over brick, because it got into the electrical system of the building.
Right.
With a high rate accelerant setting it all off. So it becomes a logical thing.
And her absolute panic because all she was trying to do was burn the book.
Right.
And as with little kids doing dumb things, it got out of hand really quick. So she goes, "Mom, I need help."
Right.
And,
I need an adult,
which is a very realistic reaction. Because on a daily basis, multiple times a day, Mom, Dad, I did something. Like, okay, we'll fix it.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So we have, for all the people who are complaining that there wasn't a logical reason for the fire doing what it did and everything else. There it is. There's your logical explanation. This is what happened. Yeah. There's not much else to say about that. But we go from that point. We see the fire spreading. We see at this point, Saul and Torben have scaled the wall. They're inside the coven. And I'm never not going to have fun with that. Anyway, they're inside the building.
Yes.
And
which is actually an old mining facility.
Yes, which is the point of the whole mining elevator and everything else. But we see them standing down with Mother Coral, and Mother Anastasia is also there. But Mother Coral is very pointed in her words because she has some very deep hatred for the Jedi, whereas Mother Anastasia seemed to be a little bit more willing to talk about things and have a discussion. As Sol and Torben came close, she reminds them that if they take another step, it will be their last. She is willing to kill them.
Yeah, she is very much the mama bear, the angry mama bear of the situation.
Yeah. So the one thing that happened that I don't understand, and maybe you can help me with this as we move forward from this scene, because of course the Jedi do take a step forward, and Mother Anastasia goes to this black cloud mist.
Yes.
And the second that happens, Master Sol's like, well, we can't have that, and stabs her with his lightsaber.
So
kills her right then and there.
Yeah. She was doing that, and I don't know if you got to go back and watch the episode again for a third or fourth time. Okay. But May is doing the same thing. So it's like
I still didn't catch May doing it. I got to go back and check that again.
Yep. So I think what's happening here is Anastasia is trying to take May and escape using some force technique that the Jedi don't know about. That we haven't seen before, which is, again, a Star Wars tradition. Every new media, we get a new force power, just about. And so, because he's never seen it, and it's dark, and it's scary, and everybody's on edge, Saul just overreacts.
Okay.
And accidentally kills a mom while she's making eye contact with her little girl.
Yeah, because I couldn't understand why Mother Anastasia went to this, this black cloud mist thing, and B, why Saul was like, all right, that's an act of aggression. I'm going to kill you.
Right.
Which started off a whole nother chain of events.
Oh,
we see Torben gets his lightsaber out. And Mother, or May sees that her mother was killed, and she runs down there. Mother Coral, who we were just looking at in the last slide, who is, kind of giving this look now of the very unhappy "I'm going to kill you" look, goes and does. Now she does the black mist thing, but she kind of floats away, and then you can hear her say, "It was very foolish of you to bring him."
Yes.
And that Torben thinks she's speaking of him. Of course, she says, "Oh no, my mind is fortified." And she's like, "No, not you. The big hairy fella."
Yeah.
So she infiltrated Kelnaka's mind, and this moment that we've been waiting for since the trailer released was finally there. And for those people who are like, "Oh, it's not very scary to have a Wookiee as a Jedi," you're not really thinking about this, because a Wookiee, well, actually, because in this capacity, he's not acting as a Jedi. He's acting more like a Sith at this very moment. In the way that he's fighting, attacking the Jedi, everything else is absolutely scary. And I looked at it in this way last night. If you give Black Chrysanthemum from the Book of Boba Fett a lightsaber and teach him the way, and he has force capabilities, no, thank you.
Right.
Absolutely frightening. You combine their physical strength with force power, and it's off the chart.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I don't think Coral was acting alone in trying to control Kelnaka here.
I don't either.
Think she had some reinforcements from the rest of the Coven. Anyway, but another thing through the whole combat sequence, Saul is trying to not use his lightsaber.
Right.
Because as was mentioned in the first episode, a Jedi only draws their lightsaber when they intend to do harm or take a life. And especially at this point, he realizes that, oh, wait, I killed a mom in front of their kid. I'm the one who screwed everything up.
Mm-hmm.
There's that immediate, you can even see it on his face. He feels very responsible. Right. He has shattered a child's heart. And there's a lot of guilt that comes along with that.
Sure.
I mean, I haven't even done anything remotely that bad. The worst thing I've ever done is like when a 2-year-old handed me a toy phone, I hung it up. And I'm still trying to live that one down from like 20 years ago.
You jerk.
I'm a monster.
You are horrible.
I really am.
And I think too that during this fight too, you see, excuse me, you also see when I mean Kalnaka pins Torben up against the wall, and he is like starting to crush his skull with
Yeah.
his offhand,
Mm-hmm.
and he's doing some serious damage. And in fact, it goes back to one of the previous episodes. It was episode 2 where we see Torben get killed by May by giving him the poison to drink.
Yeah.
Yeah, the dead eye, the scar, everything is the result of the fight with Kalnaka.
Right.
I'm pretty sure the horrible beard was just picked up later. We'll not talk about that one, but yeah. So there's the results of this fight, and I thought that the fight scene was actually pretty good for what we were looking at for a Padawan trying to defend himself, scared for his life, a raging Wookiee with a lightsaber and force powers, and Master Saul, who has realized that he has just put the fly in the ointment trying to save the Padawan from the raging Wookiee.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting shindiggery there that they got going on, and it's not really working out well for Torben. Yeah,
but then he feels guilty now, in the picture that we see here later in life, because if he hadn't rushed ahead, if he hadn't been so focused on I just want to go home, the situation would have unfolded the way it did.
Yeah, as more I think about it, I think that's why he went there, because he wanted to get the girls, because he's like, we're going to get these girls, we're going to go home.
Yeah,
I think that's what it was.
That's all he wanted. He just wanted to go home to his air conditioning, his Wi-Fi.
Can't blame the guy.
Not
7
really.
months of camping, I'd want a solid, a nice bed and a little Wi-Fi as well. But so we move on from there, and we see the scene from episode 3 where May and Osha are standing on opposite sides of the bridge. What did you do? No, what did you do? What, and they kept on going back and forth at that. And what we didn't realize, because I don't remember seeing this in episode 3, was Saul standing on the other side, holding both edges of the bridge up from collapse. And then ultimately making the decision to let Maze go and only save Osha.
Right. And so there has been some commentary online of why didn't he just pick up both girls and bring them rather than stand there for 20 seconds holding up the bridge? Because that's the way the story's written.
Exactly. So I mean, you can armchair quarterback that as much as you want, and I saw a couple videos online that did try to armchair quarterback that, and I'm like, yeah, I get it, but it also helps move the story forward if he does what he does in this episode.
Right.
It's not the greatest argument, but it is the argument to be made, is that's why he did it.
Right. I mean, who hasn't made a dumb decision in a panicked moment? Driving a car.
Yeah, it's a very human moment for Saul.
And I think that's the thing, is we're seeing the Jedi as humans who make mistakes.
Absolutely.
Which is great.
And Saul makes 3 big ones in this episode. 3 big errors. He chooses to invade the building with Torben instead of getting Torben and turning him back. That's issue number 1. Yep. Number 2, he chooses to kill Mother Anastasia because he freaks out not knowing what she's doing.
Yep. And
then number 3, he chooses to save only Osha, allowing May to fall to what he thought was her death.
Right.
And so all 3 things were big. See, and Osha, I don't think at this point realizes what Saul had done, that he let Osha go, or let May go to save Osha.
Right. And we also have a history of Jedi making poor decisions that affect things down the road.
Correct.
So,
this is definitely going to affect things down the road.
Oh yeah. Like
if we
saw,
if you piece this together with what we were seeing in episode 6, episode 8 should be really interesting.
Oh yeah.
But one of the other important things to mention is we talked about how we didn't think that Mother Coral was taking on infiltrating Kelnaka's mind on her own. We see what actually happened to all the witches.
Yeah.
Because in episode 3, we just see them laying on the ground.
Right.
We don't know what happened. We're like, there's not a mark on them. There's no fire. There's no plausible explanation as to what happened.
Right. But
so what do we have now?
Well, we had what I think was all of them joining together to try to override Kelnaka's mind, because he would be a highly trained Jedi with, whatever Wookiee behaviors are in there, they ganged up on him to override all of that.
Right,
And
which
so
explains the
when
swaying back and forth and the
right,
whatever chanting they were doing.
so when Indara comes in, tackles him and forces them out, there's a moment where she has a look of almost remorse while she's doing that, because I think she knows that she caused, I don't know, some sort of telepathic feedback that killed all of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. Just, that's not something they were ready to do on a regular basis. And just like Luke at the end of Last Jedi, they put everything they had into it. And then when they were done, they were done.
Right. They collapsed. They were done.
Yeah. So I think
mean,
it's along those lines.
Yeah, I think so. I can see that because you look at like even in the Mandalorian show, you see baby Yoda Grogu when he uses the Force, how much it exhausts him and he collapses after use.
Right.
And so if they were tapping into something that maybe they didn't use very often and using the Force to high extreme, something like what Luke did, as you mentioned in The Last Jedi, that would totally be on par and that would make sense for that to be a lateral move and explain why all of this whole coven just plopped over and died. Because we had no plausible explanation in episode 3. We had no reason, there's no blaster marks, there's no lightsaber burns, their bodies are not burned by fire, there's just bodies everywhere.
Yeah.
Because at first in this episode I was like, okay, so are they really dead or are they playing possum? But I think they're all dead.
I think so. I mean, it could just be that they were all knocked unconscious, but they're also presumed dead in, when the Jedi go through.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So at this point they leave and they go back to the ship, and Saul and Indara have quite an interchange between the two of them.
Yeah.
This is a little heated.
This is not the conversation you want to have with your boss after screwing something up on the job.
No, it's not. Yeah. She is really getting after Saul because, he wants to do the honorable thing, turn himself into the High Council, and this is where we see the cover-ups beginning.
Yeah.
And Dara's like, no, if you do that, she uses Osha as kind of the scapegoat almost, that if you do that, you're screwing things up for her. So you've made this decision all on your own, and now what are you going to do for her? How is this going to affect her?
Yeah,
and kind of an interesting thought process.
Yeah, I'm starting to think Indara might not be the nicest of people.
Yeah, there's some things, and we're going to get into this in just a minute. But there's a really cool Reddit theory out there. We're going to share it, but yeah. And it totally makes sense because you see her get heated with Saul. There's a slight physical tussle.
Yeah.
As she's trying to keep him there and in the argument and keep him from moving on. And in the midst of all of this is when Osha wakes back up.
Yeah.
And you can see Saul turn around and look at Indara for confirmation that the story he's about to feed Osha is what they're actually going to use. Because Indara says, we're going to tell the council the truth. And the truth is May started a fire. It killed all the witches.
Yep. From a certain point of view.
From a certain point of view.
Again, the grand Jedi tradition.
Exactly. Thank you, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yep.
From a certain point of view.
Yeah.
So, yeah. This whole episode shows what Saul has been holding back all these episodes. It ended in episode 6 where he says, you're going to sit and listen to what I have to say. And we are seeing it. And I find with a lot of things in Star Wars, it's all about perspective. We have to watch things from different people's perspectives and understand things from different people's perspectives. And seeing what actually happened on Brendok is very important, that we see the perspective of Saul, because without Saul's interference, that whole coven's still alive.
Right. This is a great example of when in episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, Anakin says that from his point of view, the Jedi are evil. This is a great way of seeing how somebody could come to that conclusion.
Oh, absolutely.
And seeing the galaxy from, the point of view of these witches who just wanted to be left alone, from these children who just wanted their mom, and the Jedi are the ones who are responsible for all of that being destroyed because one of them messed something up. So now the whole order has to try to fix it.
Yeah. And I think that we're going to see Osha come to that conclusion in episode 8. I really do. I think with the way that she has been seduced by Darth Guns, Smilo Ren, in the previous episode. And I think that the way that he's been laying out the story in front of her, I think that's what we're going to get.
And on that note, Anasea did a great job of doing something similar, getting inside of Torben's head.
Oh, yeah.
And like, well, this is what you want. I can give you what you want.
Mm-hmm.
That was wonderful. And also, she got inside of the Jedi's head the same way Kymir got inside Yord's head to a certain extent.
Correct.
It's a similar skill set. So is there a connection there?
There's got to be. Has to be.
They're not all named Skywalker, so there has to be something else.
I do enjoy the fact that we haven't seen a single name of Skywalker so far in this series. It's been glorious.
Yeah.
But let's move on now to that theory from Reddit. And I took a screenshot of what you sent me, and because as we read over this, it was one of those things where I was like, yeah, that does kind of make sense. This could totally be a thing.
Yeah.
So Indara is the Sith Master, right? So she countered the witch's mind intrusion to the point where she was able to kill them. Yep. That's not scary at all. She orchestrates the cover-up. She wasn't given orders to find a virgins. She did so on her own without the will of the council. She never actually sends them messages, hence why they don't go back to Coruscant and why the council said no to training May and Osha. We never actually see her communicating with them. You can deflect that a little bit, saying that she told Kelnaka, but that was only at the end, after all this had already happened.
Yeah.
She tries to choke Saul in anger. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a little out of character for a Jedi Master.
Yeah. In the last line there, she probably isn't dead. I don't know about that one. I think that she probably is dead.
I think that's more of a play on she was only stabbed with a little tiny knife. Other people were stabbed with lightsabers and seemed to survive. Except Jack.
She's only mostly dead. Anyway, that's a different movie. But I do think that this theory has some validity to it. Yeah. I don't know that she's a Sith Master or if she is just a really strong Jedi who decided that she didn't need to report to the council, was going to do things her own way.
Yeah.
But I do see some of the validity to it. I'm still curious if we're going to get a Plagueis or Tenebris sighting in this series in season 1.
Yeah.
If we do, I think it'll be at the very end, a cameo leading into season 2 of the Acolyte. I do think, though, that this person is still very much alive.
Yes.
And she could be a Sith Master in the background, because people from her planet have also been known to be very Sithy in nature.
Right.
So
yeah, she's we don't see her die. Yeah. We don't see anything to indicate that she is dead.
Correct. We just see the black mist and she takes off.
Mm-hmm. So if she doesn't show up in episode 8, she could be a villain in season 2 if there's a season 2. Haven't seen anything confirmed yet.
Right. Haven't seen anything confirmed, but based on the trajectory of where the series has gone, the rating spike, everything else, it would only make sense that they would continue on with this. No matter what certain Star Wars creators tend to say on YouTube. Yeah. They're a bunch of negative Nancys anyway. But anyway.
There's so many better ways to spend your life. The limited time you've got here than being negative and just bashing things. Like,
right.
Why are you wasting time, energy just to be negative and project negativity into other people's lives?
exactly.
Sure, we'll point out some criticisms here and there, but overall, fun show.
Exactly.
Way better than Secret Invasion.
Oh God, yes.
I tried,
That is still one of the most disappointing ends to a show I've ever seen.
but it had its good points.
It did. There were a couple episodes in there where I was really digging Secret Invasion, but that's a whole other topic of disappointment for another time. But yeah, to be critical is to be a fan. That's been my approach for a long time. Be critical. That's fine. Don't just crap on something because you can.
Right.
If you don't like something, stop watching. It's that simple. Move along. Don't ruin it for everybody else. Let us have our fun. Let people enjoy what they like. Let them love what they love, like what they like, dislike what they dislike. There's enough room for everybody in the fandoms.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Thoughts and feelings moving into episode 8.
I'm a little unsure where it's going to go because there are so many moving pieces. Coral's still alive. Okay. Allegedly, Saul's the only survivor of these 4 Jedi.
Correct.
And we still don't know what's going on with Chimera and Osha. So, and the whole nature of, they're being twins. Are they really twins, or are they like a split vergence? Did the witches accidentally create like a less powerful version of Anakin split between 2 people?
It's hard to say.
The difference between, like I don't think they're on the same scale because they were an intentional manipulation rather than the Force just doing the, hey, we need this.
The Force having a reaction to people trying to screw with nature again.
Right.
Yeah. No, I get that. Yeah, I think that episode 8 is going to have some. I think Osha will be revealed as the Acolyte. At this point, I don't see how she could not be. I'm more curious to see who the Sith Master is.
Yeah.
And a confirmation of who Chimere's master was that gave him the whip marks, because I do think it was Vernestra. And I'm curious as to who, or like I said, if we're going to get the Plagueis or Tenebris sighting, because Headland did say that there were 2 Sith in this show.
Right.
So
have we seen them already?
Sith? Have we seen them?
I don't think
because, Chimere does say that you would call me a Sith, but he's never said that he was a Sith. So is he Sith number 1? And there's a second Sith out there, or are there 2 whole Sith that we haven't seen yet? And he is possibly a Knight of Ren. So,
yeah,
there's a whole lot. There's a whole lot that needs to get answered in the next episode, and I'm hoping that it lasts more than 35 minutes.
I'm pretty sure it will.
This one needs to be closer to 50 minutes. It has to.
Wasn't the first episode?
Yeah.
Well, the first episode was the longest one so far, right?
I believe so, yeah.
And there's been a little bit of a symmetry with the length of the episodes, because episode 2 was about 45 minutes total.
Right.
So was this one. Yeah, I think there'll be some
38-minute playtime, 7 minutes of credits.
Yeah. I think there's going to be some balance there with a slightly longer conclusion.
Hope so. We need it because there's lots to be answered. And is it Tuesday yet already? I need Tuesday. I'm not wishing the week away, but I do need episode 8.
This is the fun thing about weekly releases.
I love the anticipation of the weekly release, but it also doesn't fit my my Bill Murray from What About Bob? I need. So yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So I think that's where we're at. Any final thoughts other than just goodbyes?
This is some of the best Star Wars we've gotten. It's not Andor, but Andor could have been set anywhere, whereas this is specifically Star Wars.
Yeah.
So I'm enjoying it. I'm looking forward to next week. I'm also sad that next week's the last episode.
Me too. But then in a couple of months, we're supposed to get Skeleton Crew, so I'm excited for that too.
And there was that announcement about the Lucasfilm hiring a new animation supervisor.
New animated show coming up, so I can't wait to find out a little bit more about that and have discussions.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be for Omega, but we'll see.
Yeah. Omega and Rex during the rebellion.
I would totally just, God, I would love that.
I just want to see Rex be like, Luke who?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That'd be great.
All right. On that note, I think we'll call it a day.
All right.
Thanks, guys, for watching, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below if you haven't already. It helps us a lot.
Really
And we'll see you next week for another review of The Acolyte. This time, it'll be for the series finale. Woo-hoo! Or season finale, hopefully. Not series finale. But either way, woohoo! All right. Goodbye!
Copyright 2024 FSF Podcast. Reference to any specific product or entity mentioned on this podcast does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by FSF Podcast. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. If you have any questions about this disclaimer, please contact us via email at info@fsfpodcast.com.